Hello, Mr. Nick here, helping my course number 505 Python Computer Science Games and Apps students with part of their final exam, the hands-on portion of the final exam. Here's the current practice part of that test. Read the directions very closely and good luck. Well, first we are supposed to neatly sketch the interface on a piece of grid paper of whatever is described up here and label the XY coordinates of the corners of the button that is mentioned up here. So on a piece of grid paper that's probably being distributed in class during the exam, you're supposed to find a place for a button and a perfect square, I think it says. Is it a perfect square? Yes, a square, which means its length and width would have to be the same. So let's just plop a square in here, say where its top left corner is perhaps at this point. Its top right corner is here at the point 50, comma 50. And this point over here is negative 50 on the x-axis and positive 50 on the y-axis. And let's make it a square. So let's plop its bottom corner left edge down here at negative 50, comma negative 50. And that would mean its bottom right corner would have to be right there at the point 50, comma negative 50. So carefully plotting this as best I can without a ruler. There is a nice big button in the center. Sorry about my line's not straight at all. Hopefully you'll do better on the interface part of the test. Okay, so there's the button. And according to the practice final, it's supposed to be solid red. Maybe you'll kind of fill it in. You won't have a red colored pencil, but you'll at least fill it in to show that it was filled in. And what else are we supposed to do here on the interface? When the user clicks that button, the background color of the whole screen must change to blue. Well, that's something that we'll have to program into our Python code. And your name should also be displayed in some manner towards the top of the screen, horizontally centered as much as possible. Now, we'll figure out how to do that in the code, but your name would show up somewhere here, roughly centered in this, towards the top of the screen. Okay, so we have now sketched the interface and labeled our corners of the button. You're allowed to use code from any of the trinkets that you have saved in your account at trinket.io, but you're not allowed to open up a web browser and to any other web page or website, except possibly to Schoology when you submit this as a file. Okay, so let's go code this in Trinket. Well, you should already have saved a demo program that was named something like Basic Buttons. In other words, this program that was available during the school year and that we reviewed and probably studied in class, this program you should have saved or something similar to it. And this program did lots of things, but one of the things it did was when you clicked this button right here, the background changed. Now this is not filled in red, and it says the word random, which you don't want, but you're going to have to work with the code to figure that out as part of your exam. So hopefully you have access somewhere in your Trinket files a code that looks like this. And this is too much, actually. This does a lot more than what you're supposed to in this exam. So I'm going to sort of cheat and, well, not cheat. I'm not cheating at all. I'm just building the program right here in front of you live as I type it. So we need to import Turtle. And we definitely need to set up our screen, set up our canvas. We'll need often I name it screen, at least this school year I did. And that's, here's how we did that. You'll have access to this code somewhere in your files. And I need a turtle that will draw the button. So I'm going to name it just button. I'm going to name it like button pen. And that turtle is created with the line of code that we've typed a million times by now in the school years. Now I'm going to use a different pen, although I could use that same pen. I'm going to use a different pen to draw my name at the top. So I'm going to call that text pen. And I'm going to, for button pen, I'm definitely going to move its pen up, so as I move it around, it won't draw any scraggly lines. And I'm going to hide the turtle that often that comes with it, so that there's no shape of a turtle. This is all code that you've probably found, and you can easily, under pressure on the exam, you could find this code and work with it and get it to work right. Okay, what else should we do here as we set it up? Well, let's put our name up towards the top. And where was, on the grid paper, where did we put our name? Roughly, the top left corner of our name is at the point -30, and right here about 180 on the y-axis. So the top left corner of your name is roughly -30, 180. So let's send the text pen with a go-to command, -30 and +180 on the x-axis, or y-axis I meant to say. And let's use the write command that we've used all school year. Let's write our name there. Okay, let's test it as we go. Let's test it, and voila, yep, my name is at the top. So far so good. Now let's draw our button. To draw the button, let's send the button pen. Let's do a go-to, and let's send it to its upper left corner. I don't know, just because I'm in the mood to start at the upper left corner. -50, 50. -50, 50. And because the pen was up, we did not get a scraggly line from 0 to 0, that's starting point to -50, 50. So we do want to put the pen down. And we want to draw a line and connect the dots from -50, 50 to that top right corner, which you can look on the grid. It was 50, 50. Let's test it as we go. And yes, we do have a line there, but it's not red. So let's change the color of our pen. Let's do it up here in the setup area. Let's change the color to red and test it as we go. So far, so good. And now we want to come down here to this corner, 50, -50. So I could copy and paste, but I can type pretty quickly. Go to 50, -50. Maybe you want to test this as you go. Slow and steady wins the race. And now we want to go to the other corner. Probably it makes sense to go to the corner -50 and -50, the bottom left corner of right here, so that we've pretty much drawn this section right here by now. And let's test that. Yep, so far so good. And finally, let's bring the button pen back up to the top left corner. Go to that original starting spot, -50, 50, to close up the square button so that it ends exactly where it started. But it's not filled in red, and the specs say that it has to be solid red. So somewhere from all your examples of learning this semester, you should remember that there was a fill command, button pen dot begin fill, and there's an end fill, so that it kind of ends the filled in area when you've outlined the complete surrounding outline of what you want to draw. and it fills it in for you nice and red. So there we have our red square, but it's not really a button. When I click on it, nothing happens. So we learned how to handle mouse clicks in this semester. We have to, when it's clicked, the background color of the whole screen must change to blue. So when is it clicked? Well, from one of the demo programs that we learned earlier this semester, this one right here, we learned that you can have these two lines of code here, which I'm just going to copy and paste from my previous saved programs, which is allowed on this exam. And somewhere down here, I'm going to paste that in so that when the screen is clicked, a function, DEF function called button click executes. So I have to create that function called button click, colon, and we need to make the background blue, the background of the screen. To do that, I think it's screen.bgcolor blue. Hopefully you can look that up in your notes. The name of the screen, we named it screen. There's a function, there's a method called bgcolor. And so when the screen gets clicked, and we have to have this listen command here. But since the listen command is here, when the screen is clicked, this function executes. And this line of code therefore happens because of that. Let's test it. Run. Click. Uh-oh, button click takes 2 arguments. The button click command can determine where it's clicked. So you're supposed to put an XY there. And let's test it now. Oh, it works when I click there. But I'm not finished yet, because watch what happens when I run it a different way. If I click outside of the button right now, it also changes the background color to blue. So right now, this is not a perfect exam submission. We only want the background color to change to blue if the X position of the click, when you do this DEF button click, you have to have XY here. That's just Python's rules. The X has to be greater than this left edge here, which is the point X equals -50 up here on the, has to be to the right of X equals -50. So if X is greater than -50, and at the same time, X is less than this right edge. I only want X to be inside here. It's got to be greater than -50, but it's got to be less than 50. So at the same time, less than 50. Now let's check. Oh, for an if statement to work, you must indent the code that's supposed to happen if this is true, and an if statement requires a colon there. Let's test it. This time, if I click inside in between here, it changes to blue. But if I click over here where X is not greater than -50, oh, it's not changing blue. That's good. And way over here, click, it's not changing blue. Oh, but what a bummer. If I click up here, it's changing the blue, but I'm not on the button. So as we learned earlier in the semester, I have to add some more logic and code to this if statement. I have to also guarantee that the position of the Y, when the mouse is clicked, the Y is greater than something, some number, and Y is less than some number. And you can actually put less than or equal to's in here, and it will work just as well. In fact, it'll probably look better and work a bit better if you put equality symbols in here. Okay, so let's look at our grid. If Y on the y-axis over here is less than 50, but greater than -50, that will trap us inside here. So with X trapped horizontally and the Y spot position of the mouse click trapped this way vertically, we will cover this whole area right here, and we will have a working button. So we need 50 and negative 50 to logically be put in here for these question marks. I think it makes sense to say that y is greater than negative 50 and y is less than or equal to 50. If you did not get them the right way around, it will not work correctly, but you could test it thoroughly and get it done by the end of the exam period. Let's run this and test clicking inside. It still works. Let's run it again, and let's do 4 test cases. Let's click here, 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 and here. That should cover it, and if it doesn't change blue, the background, when clicking in these 4 spots, I think we're finished with this exam. Okay, it did not turn blue when I clicked there. It's not changing the blue there. It's not changing the blue when I click here, and it's not changing the blue when I click there. But it is, when I click here, changing the blue. Okay, let's go make sure that we're finished with this exam. I think I've done everything in this paragraph. I have now finished this paragraph. Nothing should happen if the user does not click inside the button. My full name is centered towards the top of the screen. And I did first neatly sketch the interface, and that helped because it helped me code. I used a little bit of code from my other saved demo programs that we studied this semester. And now I might need to call the teacher to my computer for a grade, or maybe I'll be uploading it to Schoology or something. But anyway, let's check these 4 things. Is my interface neat? Now, I would probably make this more neat if I weren't doing this in an online video. Does my output match the sketched interface? Yes, this does match this. Number 3, how well does it match the specifications up above? It did work correctly with these first 2 or 3 paragraphs. And last of all, this 4th bullet, I should follow the class coding standards and make sure the code has good style. Now, you're not allowed to look up the coding standards. Now that's off limits. That would be opening the web browser to a web page. That's illegal. But since we've written many programs and handed them in where points were taken off for not following the coding standards, you should know what the coding standards are. So since this is a practice test, I am going to show you that on the home page, I do have a link to the coding standards. And the coding standards do stress things like, at the top, you should have your name and such. If you use functions, you should have a comment, a hashtag comment inside there explaining the purpose. You should, for any variables that you have, you should have explanations for them. If you're using constants, the constants should be in uppercase letters. If you're using variables, good variable names, capitalize the second word. If you're doing things like +1, you should have spaces around the operators. You should have blank lines above and below functions and loops and if statements. And you should, I already said, you should have good variable names with whole words like this, capitalizing the second and third words, but the first letter should be lowercase. And here's an example of a program that has good style. You also use these nice signpost comments. I'm going to copy a couple of those over to this answer. Setting up the canvas. Some other things here. Associate button click. Maybe you're doing things like placing, let's see, what else would be good? Oh, the main program. That's always nice to say where the main program is. Down there towards the bottom, right here below the functions, would sort of be the main program area. And that might be all we really need in this case. Your name at the top would be good. Let's put your name here at the top. And that might be enough in this case. This is an area where you should probably explain that you're making the button. And of course, right here, you're displaying the text, your name in this case. Okay, that's pretty good. And I'm going to add another little line when button is clicked. Blank lines above that if statement and below that if statement, a blank line there. Oh, it never hurts to have some blank lines in those places, and that's pretty much all I need. Let's make sure it still runs. And you can see enough of it, it does run. Okay, good luck on the exam.